Hey, welcome back to Wicked Weapons. This is episode 5. For those that don't know, I'm Jared. I'm the host, and my co host is my stepdad, Matt. Matt, you want to say hey?
What's up?
And we are also rejoined by Josiah, which is my brother in law.
Hey, what's up?
And today we're going to be covering harmonica guns. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so also known as a slide gun, the harmonica gun is another example of how early gun design was focused on increasing rounds per minute. For those that don't know, rounds per minute is a phrase used to describe how many bullets a firearm can send downrange within a minute. The original flintlock system in the right hands could fire 3 rounds per minute. The capability of modern firearms, however, is measured in rounds per second. Some of you may have heard our episode on PepperBox Guns, and harmonica guns are another example of the middle steps between flintlocks and modern firearms.
Yeah, so are we going to find out that you can 3D print these later on, and
No.
criminals are using them to do
And enter
underground
the
drug deals?
ATF onto the podcast.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I swear,
3D
one
printing
of, one of these episodes, they're gonna, we're all gonna be recording and they're gonna be barging into our houses.
We're gonna get
What's
swatted.
up? Yeah, exactly.
Matt,
Nah. This is our First Amendment right. They can't do nothing to us. We're good.
That's right.
Matt, I'm gonna let you take design, because
All right.
I think you can kind of cover, or you might be able to explain in a little more detail, kind of theories on how these might have worked.
For sure. All right. Design. So, what is a harmonica gun? Harmonica gun gets their name due to the ammunition in the gun being stored in a slide. Similar in appearance to a harmonica, in most modern firearms, there is one chamber, the area that the bullet is held in when it is ready to be fired.
Do you
In
have
a
a
harmonica,
better description of how to explain
the
what a chamber is?
the, the chamber. I mean, just like you described, yes, that's where your round is setting before you fire. There's usually a gap or a jump before the actual rifling starts, which is then going to be spinning your round for stability and stabilizing that round. But so yes, that first area is the chamber and the throat, and then into the rifling. Um, so, I, I mean, you kind of described it what it is. I mean, the best way to put it. I mean, that's just rather round setting until it goes bang.
Okay, yeah.
Let me go ahead.
When I was typing
All
that
right.
up, I was like thinking in my head, and I was like, "There's got to be a better way to explain this," because
No,
I
I
was like,
mean, in layman terms, I mean, yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. It's just what's holding onto the bullet till it takes off,
Well, I got it,
to the
and I don't
or I
know
guess
anything
to the
about guns,
cartridge.
so
All
at least
right.
I think I understand it. So
And this is interesting. These pictures, which they'll describe later. All right. In a harmonica gun, however, each round is in its own chamber within the slide. As the gun is fired, the user would slide the slide over so that the next chamber and round would be in line with the barrel. This makes me think, and show my age, but like these old cameras we had that had like a whole string of flashes, and it would
yeah,
like
yeah.
only use one bulb, and then the bulb is shot.
Oh,
So
dude, I
that's what it kind of makes me think of is that.
Well, I was really into like analog cameras, and those old. It's Sylvania is the brand that I've seen. They're kind of blue looking,
Hmm.
but you're
Hmm.
exactly right. You pop it on top of that Polaroid, and that filament on the inside would just like burst.
Yeah.
But those are like kind of sought after now because they don't make
Oh
them
yeah.
anymore. So
Right.
I
Right.
always look for a few when I'm in an antique shop or whatever.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think like on this. I've seen like the construction nail guns, are kind of set
Yeah.
up like this, where you can, your cartridge is coming through. I mean, obviously not a firearm. Well, I guess it could be used in a weapon, but anyways, all right. So similar to PepperBox guns, most harmonica guns were designed in pistol and rifle formats and were percussion cap firearms. A few were compressed air guns, and some were later designed to use modern cartridge ammunition.
Yeah, so
These,
like,
I can see that now. Yeah, you can see where the primer hole is on the top
yeah, kind of up
on that
above
slide.
where the
Hmm.
bullets were. Yeah, so
So
these lined up like right at the same time frame that Pepperbox guns were coming out. So they were all
Hmm.
mostly percussion cap.
do me a favor. Remind me what percussion cap means.
Percussion cap is your traditional muzzleloader. It's just a little cap that goes on, called the nipple, that then goes into, when that pops, there's just a small little flash hole that goes into the back of the barrel for your traditional muzzleloaders.
Man, I'm trying to.
And
Well,
so,
I'm looking at this thing. I'm trying to figure out how you would muzzle load this.
well, this one you wouldn't. That little thing, if I'm understanding it right, I mean, you see the little holes on the very top all the way
Right.
across it. I'm assuming that that's where the percussion cap would go,
Yeah, it looks
and
like
and it,
that's where the hammer lines
yeah,
up to hit.
the hammer's kind of coming in at a downward angle on top, and I'm just assuming I haven't, I'm assuming you'll get into it later, but I'm assuming they had like a paper cartridge, so you just had the powder in a piece of paper with the bullet in front of it in each one of those. And
They would
Okay.
so as it's moving across,
they would have
that's
to
how my
have some kind of back plate on that thing though to keep the stuff from falling out though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I at this point in time they hadn't gotten into cartridges yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
what I was
so
thinking.
side that's one way to kind of explain percussion cap ammunition is like it's kind of a bridge between the flintlock system where you had to pour the powder and everything and have a little
Right.
bit of powder in a pan kind of outside of the gun.
Yep.
It's like a middle ground between flintlock and modern cartridge pin fire ammunition.
a lot
So,
faster, a lot more consistent
so
as
just to
well.
kind of figure this out in my head. So, like flintlock is like you're pouring the powder directly down the barrel, right? And
Right.
then the bullet, then that fires out. Percussion cap is actually like a separate. It's not a cartridge exactly, but it's like a standalone thing. Like there's like a little bit of a
No,
standalone element to it. No, you're
no,
still
no.
pouring.
It's yes, yeah. You're still pouring. The percussion cap is just the ignition portion of it. So
Okay,
they
okay,
both of them are muzzle load. You load them powder, patch, bullet down the muzzle. It's just how are you igniting that powder that's down in the barrel. Primer cap, there's just a little nipple on the side that a hammer hits and sparks it. That's your early primer before you have
got.
primers in your modern day cartridges.
So it's kind of
That
like
was
you
just
said. In order for this gun to work, they would have to have something holding it in there together as it slid through. Like they
right,
would pour the gunpowder in each portion, I'm assuming, and then slide it in
right.
there. Okay. Well,
And
Yeah, I think
prior
they're
to this, they were getting into, like, you would, and I know we covered on one, I think, but they were transitioning from your traditional round ball that you was your bullet. Then they went to mini balls. It was getting to be more pointed, conical shaped, but it was hollow on the back. So when you shot it, it swelled out, sealed the chamber, and so you had a better spin or rotation on the end for that accuracy, stability. But then they started, instead of you having to pour powder out of a horn or whatever it is, they started just having these little paper pouches that you would either shove the whole thing down the barrel or just tear off and then dump. And that was your calculated amount of powder, so you're not guessing. That's the thing. If you're in a hurry and you're being shot at, and you're trying to reload that, and you just dump a whole ton of powder in there, you just made a bomb. Now you've got a 10, 20, 30 time charge. I mean, who knows how much? I mean, you could.
Yeah, you're blowing your gun up. That's part of the thing with the chamber is that it's where the pressure from firing that round, all that pressure is contained in the chamber. So
Right.
like your revolver cylinders, which I actually kind of make a little bit of a comment about how these still kind of remind me of revolvers in a way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
your
Absolutely.
revolver cylinders, you'll see a lot of them where like the actual frame of the revolver is made of a lighter metal like brass, but the cylinder that's actually serving as the chambers for those rounds, that cylinder is usually made of a much stronger metal.
There's a lot of guns that are aluminum, but they've got a or steel cylinder
Yeah.
and a steel rifling liner to save weight. They've even got them that are plastic. Ruger makes one that's a lot of plastic, but it's just got steel where it needs it.
Well, as long as you use 22 cap ammunition, you can just 3D print.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh,
Sorry, ATF. Sorry. Yeah, well, and like,
right.
so far, and like we might change it later on, but like I'm looking at this and I'm like, I feel like the pepper box was more efficient than this. Like I'm looking at this thing, and I don't know, I just can't get behind the
I don't
that
know.
sliding. Okay, so here's another thing I'm looking at it. Like, okay, so here's what I think. Unless they have something that catches it, like right when it lines up with the chamber, like I feel like you have a really strong possibility of shoving that thing in there and then it being misaligned and just not working, or like the
Oh yeah.
bullet stuck. Like I don't know. It
So
this one does not. I don't know if I'd pick this one up
some
and
of
shoot it.
some of the later ones, from what I was reading, were made as double action. So Matt can probably explain this better, but on a double action revolver, instead of having to pull the hammer back, okay, well, let me rewind a little bit. On a single action revolver, when you cock the hammer back, that action is also what's rotating the cylinder to
Okay.
align the next round with the barrel, right? On a double
Mm.
action, as you pull the trigger is fixed in such a way that it's connected to the hammer, where pulling the trigger cocks the hammer back and also rotates the cylinder. So,
So is there any mechanism on this gun
yeah,
that does that? When they pull that hammer back, does it pull the next one in?
that's what I'm getting at is some of these were made single action and double action.
Okay.
So they
Okay.
did have
Okay.
some kind of gear system in there that when they would cock the hammer back, it would bring the next one over.
Yeah, because I would 100% jam that thing. I would if I'm panicking in a fight. Like I'm not going to be thinking about lining this thing up perfectly. And so I don't know. The harmonica gun, it
Uh,
looks silly. Looks like a clown would hold it almost. Like it's
Yeah,
like you
it,
even got the plastic gun
that
at the top.
it's a gun with
like
wings.
like you said, we said before though, like the with the pepper box, that was more your nobility and your
Yeah.
money. Not everybody would even have been able to afford something like this. So you're not getting into big fights. It might be one dude across the poker table
Yeah.
from you, and that's it. So
Yeah,
Yeah, Sir Fancy Pants is like pulling this out in the parlor and like showing his buddies.
yeah, well,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I don't think you can conceal this one anywhere.
two
Yeah. Oh yeah.
two things I'm kind of thinking of. Just this didn't actually hit me until now, but just looking at these, the first thing is similar to the pepper boxes. We talked about like the hammer covering the front sight, and like just
Hmm.
looking at this one, it's
Yeah.
just there's no rear sight. There's just one bead sight at the front, and the hammer's like in the way.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes if you look at a lot of the early revolver muzzleloaders, still the hammer was your rear sight. you can't see it, but when you cock it back, then you can see it. So when the hammer tang is stuck up like that one, you can't see it, but when you cock it back, the front of the actual hammer has a V cut into it. So that's your rear sight.
Oh,
They did that on a handful.
the next thing I was going to say is this kind of just makes me think of like it's like a predecessor to the modern like magazine concept.
Mm-hmm.
I could totally see that.
Well, but also the predecessor to your modern day belt fed, just in a different form. So your Maldouche, your 249 Saw, M60.
I wish I would have thought about that.
But
while
yeah,
I was-
those. I mean, that's
Have you guys have you ever heard of the engineering design process? Have you ever heard of that? I used to teach it back in the day to my like 8th graders, but it's like I don't know, when I see these guns, there's almost like this like I can see it like coming out in real life. Like it's like we have a problem, right, which is like firing. And then it's like you do research, so you like look at the guns around you. And then there's like this brainstorming that happens over I don't know, like generations where they slowly build and build and build and build until they find a solution.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very interesting to me to see this evolution. I know we talked about the PepperBox guns, but yeah.
there was an early, hating that I can't remember the name of it. If it was the 1919 belt fed, but they weren't like your modern day metal links that would come apart. It was an actual nylon. I think it was nylon. Some of them may have even been leather, but it was just a belt that you put all the cartridges through, fed it through. Then you could reuse that. You had to put rounds in it. I can't remember which belt fed that was, but that would have been another kind of take on this into military type weapons.
You were asking
So
about if I wanted you to do some of the documents and see like this is a perfect example of how maybe I should have thrown this one to you because I didn't even think about that or I didn't know about that.
Another thing I think about, like this was gun was around at the same time as like the PepperBox, right? Like they
Yeah.
were around. They were contemporaries. So like Sir Fancy Pants, like does he have a PepperBox and he has this and he's like I don't know. Was there like a harmonica gun camp and a PepperBox camp? Like I wish I could see the data on like who owned what. Like were these more popular than the PepperBox or were I feel like the PepperBox was more popular because it lasted into modern times, right? So like we
Yeah.
saw it being 3D printed.
Yeah,
But
and
I don't know.
there's honestly more information on them too from what I could find.
The PepperBox or the
Yeah,
harmonica gun?
on the PepperBox. There's way
That's
more
probably our clue
information.
there.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe this is like the 1800s Glock versus 1911.
Oh no.
See, that's something I've never. That's you gun guys, right?
Yeah,
Like I don't know what that
this is-
means. What's worse, the Glock or the 1911?
Oh
y'all's
no,
opinion.
don't get that. That's well, I'm a 1911, but this is like Chevy Ford argument. I mean,
Oh no! So like we're gonna
it's
lose half our fan
never
base
ending.
if you take a
Yes,
stance.
yes. Well, no.
Yeah, Matt,
we
I'm gonna have
probably
to, for the sake of the podcast, I'm gonna
Absolutely.
have to edit out you saying you're a 1911 guy.
Oh man!
I call Glock was probably, I don't know my history on that like I should, but one of the first ones that really came out big that was the polymer plastic instead of all metal. And so your traditionalists were just like, no, plastic. And I call them Lego guns. I have forever.
Oh no! Oh no!
Just because, and I've got
They are kind of
one of my
brick
best
shaped.
friends is oh yeah, well, but one of my best friends he's Glock true and true, and that's like 90. We constantly pester each other. We'll find something. I see this Glock blew up, or did you see this 1911? It's just it's a Chevy Ford argument. They'll never be.
But
We
you
like
know
the
what?
1911 guys are like, hey, name another gun that's won 2 world wars because they were used in 1 and 2.
Well,
And the Glock are like, oh, you've been using that forever. It's like,
Well, I'm a Toyota guy, so what gun is that? like the third
I
party
don't
gun.
know, man. Yeah, right.
To,
Hey, we
so
are too. That's all we do is Toyotas.
I think Toyota's like the old reliable. So I think the Toyota would have to be like a Colt or a Smith and Wesson like revolver, you know, because it's like
Mhm.
Okay.
just really
Yeah.
dependable, you know.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Gramps,
revolvers,
Gramps back there.
speaking of
Yeah.
revolvers, me and Matt still want to look at that gun that you have. that
Well, look, I was
Oh
going to
yeah.
tell you, I listened to the gun safety podcast, and that, that had a big influence. It's like, okay, I'm not firing this thing anything. I need to bring it to these two
Right.
guys, have them check it out, and it also made me realize, like, I'm not very, I don't know, I've shot guns, and I've shot this gun, but I might need to kind of practice a little more just to make sure I'm like safe with it. So,
Oh,
uh
absolutely. Absolutely.
because yeah, I mean, I don't know, like the gun safety, like, okay, so here's a little story for you. And that came to my mind when I thought that podcast, if I'm not divulging too much from what we're talking about, but one of the first times I ever shot a gun, it was just like it was a shotgun. I think it was like I don't know, we were hunting squirrel, but my dad gave it to me, and he said, and it was already loaded, so that's probably like the first mistake. But and I'm sure my dad's probably gonna get mad that I tell this story. But he told me, he's like, do not shoot this gun. He's like, don't shoot it. Like, don't do it. Like, just wait for me. I'm gonna walk you through it. Well, I got excited. So like I there were some bottles he had lined up, and I held it, and I put the barrel underneath my armpit, right? So like the stock was not resting against my shoulder, and I brought it up to my face, and it had a hammer on it. I pulled it back, and I shot it, and I shot that bottle, and that hammer came back, and it just like sliced open like
Ooh.
my cheek. Yeah, yeah, just came
Mhm.
back,
Mhm.
sliced it open. I fell to the ground, dropped the gun. Oh man, my dad was so mad. Oh my gosh, that's probably one of the angriest I've ever seen him. But I thought of that story when y'all were telling that podcast. I was like,
Well,
man, that's like, oh gosh,
well,
scary
here
stuff.
this will be a funny one. Show the difference in how ours, and I'll be short, but I can actually remember shooting my first time ever shooting an automatic pistol, and one of the big things you never want to do when you're shooting semi-auto pistol is put your offhand thumb around the back of it or
Yep,
yeah,
up,
yep.
and I was probably, I don't know, 9, 10, something like that, and Dad was there with me, and he saw me do it, and I did that first shot, and it took the skin right off the top of my thumb, and
Oh man.
and he and he had told me to not do that. I had done that before on revolvers, not that big a thing, but he wasn't going to tell me again. Then he was like, "Bet you won't do that again, will you?" I'm like, "Nope."
yeah.
Left thumb has
Um,
never been on the backside.
Well, Lindsay always tells the story about this time that all y'all were. It was this time of year, I think. It was like a Thanksgiving. It was before she and I got together. But it was like the whole family was out shooting guns, and she
yep.
shot a bottle or something and got excited and turned and swept everybody
I
with
see.
the gun.
I was there for that. That was
Yeah.
scary. And honestly, you talk about that thumb thing. Same thing. My cousin David, he gave me this gun, and I grabbed it, and I did exactly what you did. Like, I had my hand over that back part, and he was like, yeah, dude, you don't need to do that. You're gonna like rip your hand apart." And I was like, "Oh, thanks for telling me."
Yeah, thanks for the heads up.
So, yeah. Well, and like, this also reminds me, what's that guy? That Borat guy? What's his name? Oh, gosh, I can't remember. But he did this like comedy, and he was kind of like making fun of conservative America. But like, there was this bill that some Republican guy, I can't remember the details, but basically it was like training for toddlers with guns, right? And they like were lampooning him, like, that's so crazy. Like, why would you ever, train toddlers? But children are, you got to train them more than anybody else, right? Like, because like like kids are so excited to use this stuff, like they
Hmm.
want to shoot a gun, and it's like, I don't know, gun safety needs to start at an early age, and if you're gonna have
Oh,
guns in the
absolutely.
house, And obviously I wouldn't give a toddler a gun, but like it doesn't hurt talking to him about it and being like, hey,
No,
we gotta
not
be
at all.
careful. Yeah, so I don't know. Like that was supposed to be a big joke, but guns are not going away. They're here. They're in America.
Oh yeah,
They're part of our culture.
And
So like,
right.
I mean,
gun
let's
safety
be
is important.
honest. Even if they got outlawed, they would still be around. I mean, there's
No,
too many.
ATF.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
nah,
Um.
they know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, let's make that clear. Every gun that Matt and I own are legal. So like background
Hmm.
check has been passed to get them. That they're registered. So it's like we're good.
Yeah, y'all need to do a
I'd be
Hopefully.
podcast
scared to
on.
death to do one of those 3D printed ones you talking about.
Oh
I do with guns
gosh,
all
yeah.
again.
Even if that was
Just like,
Well,
22 cap, I'm not doing it. I'm
well,
just
y'all need
not
to do a
doing it.
podcast. Y'all need to do a podcast on Glocks versus 1911s, and then y'all
oh
need to do a
gosh.
podcast on how to effectively register your weapon and pass those weapons down so you're staying within the law.
Uh,
To make it clear.
Yeah, we
Uh,
can. You know what? That is actually a good idea for a topic. We can kind of talk about the process because I'll be honest with you, there are people when I was working at my old job and I would do some of the firearm sales. There was a woman that came in that had lived in New York, and she was like, came in and she saw all the guns in the back of the store, and she got this look on her face, and she was like, "Y'all sell guns here?" I was like, "Yeah, we do." And she was like, "So how does that work? Do people just come in and just buy a gun?" And I said, "Well, they have to fill out the form, and I have to call the ATF to do a background check on them." And she's like, "Oh, that you have to do that?" I was like,
Do
"Yes."
background check?
Yeah,
lady,
it's a
it's like
misconception that you
Oh,
don't
it
have to
is.
do
Yeah.
that. I mean, obviously
well, it's
there
like
are some loopholes, but
I guess she hadn't been in the Walmart in the South because every
Yeah.
Walmart here sells guns.
yeah.
So
Right.
maybe Walmart's in New York City, or at least maybe in the city.
Hey, perfect
Uh, dude,
perfect timing. Josiah, I see it says you're playing Red Dead 2. And when I was
yeah,
researching this, I saw this post on Reddit where somebody was saying they should add the harmonica gun to Red Dead 2.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and a little plug for that game, man. That is an amazing game.
it is a
This is
really
me and
good
Mary,
game.
me. This is me and Mary Hannah's
I've
second
never played it.
playthrough. Oh, you gotta play it, man. That's like the
Have,
only game that's ever like made me like almost cry. Like
Matt
the story is
really?
just that good. Yeah, no,
Matt played the
it's
first
awesome.
one. Matt did play the
Yeah, I
first
played the
one
first
when
one.
it came
Yeah.
out.
The second one's better in my
Yeah,
opinion. And
it's
it's
so
another
good.
Glock 1911 thing, but it is just phenomenal. It is phenomenal.
And Matt, you
Oh,
can in that game you can like customize. You can go to a gunsmith and get your guns like
Mm-hmm.
customized and engraved and all this stuff. So
Uh,
I would always go
yeah,
get
I'll have to
my
check that out.
lever action rifle customized to look just like my
Look like
Henry big boy
Henry. Yeah.
with like the
Uh,
brass receiver, but I would get the receiver engraved. Um,
engraved. That's awesome.
yeah.
I'll have to check that out. That's funny.
Um,
should we go ahead and move into the history?
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I
Back on
think we
track.
should.
that's all you,
I
man.
think
Yeah,
we should.
yeah, why don't you
Okay,
cut some of that up?
whatever. Talking's fun, all right? That's why it's a podcast. All right.
Absolutely, that's the
O-
whole point of it.
Okay, so history, all right. So in 1814, a flintlock harmonica gun was patented by James Thompson, but some reports state that the earliest known example of a harmonica gun was constructed by a Swiss inventor in 1742. So that's pretty dang early. There are also reports that a Mormon gunsmith named Nicanor Kindle independently invented his own design in 1838. It's also reported that Kindle is who Jonathan Browning got inspiration for his design form, which brings us to Jonathan Browning, the father of John Moses Browning, is the most famous maker of harmonica guns. In the 1830s and 40s, he began making harmonica guns as well as more conventional rifles. A pump action harmonica gun was patented by Alexander Bain in 1854, and a crank operated harmonica gun was patented by C.G. Terrell in 1856.
Yeah, so Jonathan Browning, I actually had to.
Designed in 1911.
Well, was that him or was that John
Was it really him?
Moses?
Oh, John Moses Browning. Yeah, not
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first guy.
Well,
Yeah,
well, see,
yeah, John Moses Browning designed a ton.
yeah, yeah. John Moses Browning is like the Browning that's like really well known, but Jonathan Browning was his dad. Um, yeah, I saw
Maker of a
Browning.
gunsmith as well.
I saw Browning, and like Jonathan is so close to John that I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, Browning. And then I looked a little further into it, and I was like, oh no, it's actually the father of John Moses Browning. But
Mm-hmm.
So who am I looking at here? Is that Browning, the picture of, or is that C.G. Terrell, the
so
guy with the Nick?
that's Jonathan Browning. So yeah,
Okay, the
sorry.
dad. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I know I kind of positioned this a little weird. But so that's Jonathan Browning. Because the last two that I mentioned, Alexander Bain and C.G. Terrell, those were just kind of some side notes. Just because I wanted to include that the one guy had a pump action harmonica gun, and the other
Yeah,
guy
that's
had a
pretty interesting.
crank operated harmonica gun, which I'm like, I don't know how that would work. But
Or if that, well, that was probably being led up to probably what ended up becoming the early Gatling gun.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like you said at the very beginning. How many rounds can we send down range faster?
Yeah, that's the
Um,
problem, right?
yeah,
They got that
yeah,
they're always
it,
trying to solve that problem. How we
yeah,
gotta shoot faster. Like that seems
yeah.
to
We
be
got to
the big
kill more
drive.
people faster than the other team can
yeah.
kill more people.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
Um,
That's the problem.
Accuracy
and
by volume, not necessarily accuracy.
Yeah. It's like rifling, bullet shape, whatever. Let's just like
Yeah,
fire
just
more.
send it.
as the
Yep,
saying goes, spray and pray.
That's
absolutely.
right. Yeah. Oh
So
man.
that gun beside him, I couldn't find a good picture of the full rifle that had much detail on it, but that's hit one of his harmonica rifles that he made.
Well, that
It's
thing
really
looks
cool.
more. It looks more reliable than the other guns. Like it actually looks better designed. I mean, just from a layman perspective, like when I look at it, that looks more. I don't know. This seems more conducive to like a rifle type situation as opposed to like just holding a gun, like you said at the poker table. Like I feel like the cartridge would be a lot better if you were sniping something from a distance. You could just
Yeah,
fire it and then think about it, shove it in the next round, fire it again.
Well, that one looks like he just took a regular percussion muzzleloader and converted it
yeah,
and probably. I mean, I already got one built. It'd be easy to modify that. But I'm interested more in the um, what the powder was contained in because that seems like it'd be very easy to set them all off at one time if you had
yeah. I
a
know.
fireball
Like
leak,
the
a fire spark leakage, and if it's just paper,
well,
I
and
mean,
Oh boy.
hey,
hold on, here we
that's
go.
the benefit to the PepperBox guns was that each round had its own barrel.
Right. Yeah.
If
Mm-hmm.
all five, I'm assuming that slide is 5 rounds.
That's kind of what it looks like. Yeah.
But if all five of those went off, I mean, you'd be destroying the gun, and
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, you could take
And
up long range. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm assuming that the bullet would be held in there if not if it didn't blow up. All that fire is just being shot right back in your face from that powder
yeah,
of those
yeah, like
open ones that are. I would rather shoot a pistol version than I would a rifle version of this thing.
yeah, because
Because
it's
the more I
Oh
look
lower.
at it,
yeah,
I'm
I
like,
didn't even think about
man, that
that.
just looks. I mean, yeah, it's all of that oopsie is right up in your face. Yeah, you lose a hand, but if you lose your head, then I mean, that's
See,
yeah,
I was thinking.
that's
I was
definitely
thinking.
tie it down and pull it with a string, see what happens.
Well, to me, it's you could shoot someone far away from you, and then potentially shoot the guy right next to you too. So maybe
Mhm.
maybe it's
And
a
yourself. Kill 3
that's
people at one
right.
time.
That's right.
Everybody
That's
falls
right.
down.
Yeah, maybe so.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, right.
Um, so yeah, if y'all are ready, we can start looking at some more
Yeah.
pictures. So this first one's pretty straightforward. This is the pistol that I've already had pictured earlier, and obviously it's percussion cap, because you can tell where the nipples would go. Yeah, I mean it's pretty straightforward because we already had that one in a picture. I am gonna ask Matt, do you see the? So it's like there's a slot in the trigger guard, and there's an extension off the trigger coming through that slot. Do you see that?
I see that.
Do you
I'm
know what that?
wondering if that. I'm wondering if that is a separate trigger, and that's what actually moves the harmonica over. You
Oh,
pull that bottom one like it's behind the trigger you pull, and you pull that with your index or your middle finger to like cock it, so to speak. I don't
okay.
know. That's strictly a guess, or it was so strong to move it if it did it like a double action, which I doubt. Um, that it would early on might take 2 fingers to pull it. I don't know. I mean that I've never seen one of these before like that. So I'm assuming the mechanics hadn't been figured out yet to where when you pull the hammer, it also moves that. So that's what I'm
Yeah,
wondering is if you
yeah.
pull the
Maybe
hammer
this
and then
was
you
one
pull
of
that.
the really early ones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So this little kit that we have next to this gun,
oh, so the next one.
uh, yeah. Well, the one that y'all were just talking about, it looks like this one they figured out some of the issues from the earlier ones and have kind of built upon it to kind of like fix it. Like I'm wondering where this was in the timeline of harmonica guns. Like this is definitely that gun looks like it was like later on. But I was looking at the next gun and they've moved to that kind of putting that clip in. So it's kind of like you said
Uh-huh.
they're starting to get to that point to where they're like this is like a cartridge. But I'm looking at some of these things in this kit and I'm like, I don't know, what is half this stuff? Like some of it looks for maintenance,
Well,
but what is that big hammer thing? They don't even have anything in that slot. What is that?
I'm a, from what it looks like, so the one without anything in it is a little like a little pan with the point. It looks like a little bird beak on that right side.
That'd be
Yeah.
for
Is
like
a,
pouring the powder.
yes, you would
Oh.
no, that would be for melting lead.
Oh,
And then
Oh.
yeah,
the
like the
tool right
Patriot.
above it that's right. Well, that's what the part up above it that's um looks like a pair of pliers. That's a mold. So you would just pour in
Oh.
that little bitty hole, and so
It's
there's
like a
your. I mean, it's a lead ball mold, and the deal right above it, I'm assuming held powder, and that was just because they were probably having to load these clips. I mean, I know they would. I mean, you're not going to get just a whole truckload of these clips already loaded up, so they're probably loading each one of those up like a muzzle loader, but just loading the chambers. I don't know what that little like miniature keg beer barrel looking thing is. I can't tell what that would be done. I'm assuming the very bottom thing is just a plunger to
Yeah.
get like a clean rod, or
well,
knock a bullet out that's got stuck. The other ones I can't really. I'm gonna say the little center um, octagon thing probably was full of primers. Um,
yeah.
and
So
or little or
like
caps, I guess not primers, but caps.
like three things come to my mind when I see this. One, this would be a great stocking stuffer, right, for your gun
Yeah,
enthusiast,
right.
right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Uh, it makes me think about that scene in the Patriot where they're like melting down the little toy soldiers. Have you
Yeah,
ever seen that
yeah,
movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's what Jared was referencing. I mean, that's exactly what that little thing was, and that's what a lot of guys had to do. I mean, supply chains would be broken back in the, you know, when this stuff was always going on.
Yeah.
They had to meltdown whatever they could to make whatever they had. You know.
I'd be
Um,
Um,
interested to know how many of these, if any, got used, like in the Civil War time period.
yeah, yeah. Well, okay, and like this is tangentially related, but have y'all like a couple of weeks ago were y'all paying attention to the Supreme Court and like gun kits and like how they were going to be regulated? Have y'all seen that or
No.
uh,
heard about?
gun. What do you mean gun kits? What are they?
Well, okay, so and I'm probably gonna butcher this, but I was listening to a law podcast, and they were talking about there's this case that basically got brought up, and it was like, should you regulate guns that are disassembled essentially the same way that you regulate fully assembled guns? Because apparently, like, there's a couple companies, and they would sell these kits, and basically you would use them to like build a gun and you know you'd have a fully functional gun and like even some of the kits like you had to at least drill like one hole and
Hmm.
anyways but they were debating whether or not they should regulate these kits the same way they regulate a gun and like the companies were like no don't do that because there's no way to prove that you're using these parts to build a gun right you know it's like
Hmm. Hmm.
but it was like you know they brought up this stuff like all these different arguments and it was like well you know if you go to a restaurant or not a restaurant but a store and you buy a salad kit like there's only one intention for the kit like you're not buying
Right. Right.
and so but I think they pretty if I remember correctly they basically landed on and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of this but it was like yeah we got to regulate these things but it's almost like the company was like trying to get around those regulations by just adding a little more effort to it. You know, it was like
Hmm.
you drill. It was like, oh, you can't make a gun out of this unless you have like a drill press or a drill to drill it. And it came down to the debate of like what a receiver is. There was like all kinds of stuff in it. Anyways, it was really interesting
They
how they were trying to get around it. But
That was going on a lot with suppressors not too long
yeah,
ago.
yeah,
You see, you even see them come across like on Facebook, and they would call them solvent traps or mufflers. But they weren't, or there would be, they would have the suppressor but it didn't have the end hole drilled on it. It had it like center punched where you need to drill it. But these guys, there's people like selling them at gun shows, and it's like there's
uh,
ATF sitting off right behind them, just like writing everything down. You know, it's like whoever bought one of those got a visit later that day.
Well, I mean,
Because
that's
it's like
it's the same thing. It's like what else? They're like, oh, you use it when you clean a gun to catch the solvent. I was like, no, you don't. Nobody ever does that. I would never do that.
I'm just a suppressor enthusiast. That's
Yeah,
all I buy. I just
yeah,
buy
yeah.
suppressors.
It's
What are you
like
talking
that's
about?
not. And I mean, even before that, they had you could buy them at certain shows and offline, like the baffles that go inside of them, where you could take one of those old metal mag lights, the big like D cell battery mag lights.
Yeah.
You could take the light end off, the battery end off, put all these
Oh,
baffle in it with the cap, screw them on, and drill a
oh
hole,
man.
and you got which I mean, if you put them on any modern day rifle, I'm gonna say they probably exploded. I don't think they could hold the pressure. It would be more like rim fires and stuff like that. I don't know. I was like, no,
Man, that is so
that's
wild.
just asking for a visit from somebody from the alphabet crew. You
It's
know,
like
it's like
the alphabet crew. I like that.
the
the
alphabet crew.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, just the ingenuity that goes into just trying to break the law. Like, you know, at a certain
right,
point,
right.
like just be okay with a little bit of regulation. You know, it's not gonna kill anybody to just like
No,
you know. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I knew you guys
it's
would give me a
it's
little more insight on that. That's awesome.
Um,
Oh boy.
I hadn't heard that one, but they've been. I mean, the Supreme Court, has really. I mean, they generally stand behind Second Amendment pretty good. I mean, even your states, Illinois passed assault weapons ban, and then I think Supreme Court just kicked it out, and they even removed California's assault weapons ban. But they still have their, they're still California compliant. versions, and but I could. I don't know. It can get into the political side. I mean, I'm not a big deep person. I don't want any more damage to a fragile Second Amendment as it is.
Oh,
So,
you
like
guys
you
are
said, yeah,
y'all are really
it's.
like anti Second Amendment, right? You guys, like
Oh
I get
yeah,
the
yeah,
vibe that you
can't,
guys
yeah,
Oh
you don't
yeah,
want
yeah,
yeah,
anybody
absolutely,
you don't want
absolutely.
anybody.
yeah.
But
um,
Oh
and
god.
my big thing, I always tell people, if you want, if everybody believes in the First Amendment and they support it, well, you can't have the first one without the second one. Second one's
Oh,
the
there's
only
your
reason the
political
first
statement
one
right
is.
there.
Yep,
I
Oh
yep.
mean, the
man.
first one's
Matt,
never.
I'm just gonna have to
Hey,
bleep you out, man.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah. Bleep me out.
We're gonna
But
get
and it's
canceled
the
No.
before
truth.
we even start.
No, it's the
No, no, this is great. This is great. That's awesome.
truth.
Um, yeah, I think we should kind of try to wrap it up. Um,
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
Sorry.
I'm
Sorry.
no, you're good.
I'm
You're good.
excited on this. This
I'm
this next one is I'd never seen that before. It obviously is predecessor to the Tommy gun,
yeah.
but
Yeah, right? Yeah, for
it's
sure.
it's that's a that one looks like they hammered some of them parts together on that back end. I mean, that thing's just been. But that one is really cool.
So
Yeah,
Australian War Memorial. So is this an Australian like military gun? You know, they were shooting
I
emus and stuff with
honestly
it.
could not find like any information on this thing. I just found the picture was all I found. But yeah, I mean, it really
I
just
mean, it's the
looks like
same
a
concept
Thompson
of, but yeah,
or
the
a
same
Tommy gun.
concept though of your uh, harmonica and the Tommy gun had a baby.
Yeah,
Well, and it's
some.
kind of like. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, some musician out there needs to make a circular harmonica with like a ton of potential notes that you can
Mm-hmm.
play.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking at this thing, and I wonder when these guys have these guns. Like some gunsmith is like, man, I really want to improve the harmonica gun, but at this point, like I'm looking at this thing, it's like they've already invented better guns. Like it's like at a certain point, you need to stop improving the harmonica
Something
gun
old.
because I mean, because like this is like basically you're getting to a revolver at this point, right? And like you
Yeah,
said, it already
I
looks
mean,
like the Tommy gun.
yeah, this basically is like a revolver carbine with just a lot of ammo capacity. um,
Yeah, it's like if I like started improving on the floppy disk and was like adding more and more memory to it. It's like, dude, we're already like on
dude,
the USBs, man, solid
dude,
state. Like
get
you're
a
good.
SSD.
Yeah, like you don't need to improve this harmonica gun anymore. But I don't know. That's pretty
I would
cool.
say
I
that
mean,
one probably had to have. That was probably actually cartridges.
Yeah, it's
I
got
want
to
to
be
say
because
in that
I
one.
don't see the nipple space. My gun
Well,
this this gun doesn't have nipples on it, so
I mean, not that they couldn't, but man, that would suck to load all those up like that.
yeah, I
You know,
know you're sitting there.
muzzle cat
Uh,
well, and
pressing
look,
each one of those.
and I gotta say it. I gotta say the joke. The old standby. It's like, what? Are you happy to see me, or is that a harmonica gun in your pocket? You got, you got,
Right,
you
right.
got, you got two barrels coming out of there, right? Like, what is that?
so
That's
this last one is my personal favorite because it shows it's literally the overlap between harmonica and pepperbox.
Yep, there
What
it
is
is.
that? 1, 2.
that is crazy.
Yeah, so that's
Let's see.
10 barrels.
Well, and like I gotta say, I think I've seen this gun in meme format somewhere, and I guess I just always assumed that that hammer fired off every single one of those barrels at the same time. But now I'm looking at it and I get it. Like it slides down. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom. So man, yeah, I learned something. Now I'll be able to look at guns and at least know if it's a harmonica gun, pepper box, or something else. So
Right.
Let me hit the conclusion real quick.
Yep.
And so harmonica guns, or as I have come to call them, linear revolvers, are a perfect example of the unique ideas gunsmiths have come up with to increase fire rate and ammo capacity in their firearms, even before the ammunition itself had developed further. The ingenuity of early gunsmiths being carried on throughout the years is exactly why modern weapon systems are capable of firing at insane rates. The Metal Storm, for example, is capable of firing 1 million rounds per minute, and
Yep,
that's
there we go.
pretty wicked.
That's pretty wicked.
Um,
Oh, you know what else is? You know what else is wicked? If you guys have been paying attention to news, did y'all see that the first time ever an ICBM was launched by Russia against Ukraine? Did y'all see that?
oh
Well, I thought
no,
they said that it wasn't. I thought they said it was a practice rocket.
Oh, see, well, that's the thing.
that's what they say.
In
Because they said they
media,
had notified the U.S. that they were firing a. Well, again, okay, that's media. I don't know. That's the last I had heard. I didn't know it was actually went anywhere.
well,
Um,
yeah, you got to talk about those eventually in this podcast. I see it's ICBMs, but yeah, no, I saw that and I was telling Marianne about it. And she was like freaking out. Is this World War III? And I was like, I don't know, but it's definitely sending a message. You know, definitely a little more advanced than a harmonica gun. But
Yeah.
man, it's wild stuff.
that's
Weapons are
crazy.
still evolving, still growing.
Oh, you can watch the battlefields right now with all the small drones being used. I mean, it's literally you can see the battlefield changing right now. Some of the stuff that China's doing, like true, like off your Call of Duty, actual real drone swarms, launching thousands at a time, all computer
Oh man.
programmed to send 100 over here, 100 over here, flank over here. Just click the button and let them go.
Well, and it's
Oh,
we actually talked about
it's
the
scary.
Metal Storm in the PepperBox
yep.
Guns video,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
just I don't know if you watched the video form on YouTube, or if you listen to the Spotify one, but the Spotify one, I feel like anyone who listens to it is probably in for a jump scare because I just cut in a clip of the gun just
That
going
thing
off.
firing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
those
it's
things are
like
loud. It's crazy.
they play a little siren sound, and then it's just, you know,
Well, is that
Yeah.
what that is in this GIF? Is that what we're looking at right here?
yeah,
Like, is that the
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's
so
it.
that's a mil? Is that a million rounds being fired off right there? Like in
I
that
think
picture?
it's
Quite a
it's
few thousand.
sixteen
Oh man,
thousand per second
Mm-hmm.
or
man.
1 million per minute. So that's probably about 16,000 that it's firing right there.
It
Because
it it.
it's a
Go
whole
ahead.
bunch of barrels with each barrel has got however many they can bullets and
And they're
charges in between
fired
each one
they're fired like
electronically.
magnetically or
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
electronically. Um,
So there's these scenes like like I think about 300 where you see like the
Mm-hmm.
bazillion arrows flying up in the air and
Yeah,
then like coming
that's
down.
exactly what. Yep.
But this is instantaneous. You don't even see it coming.
Yeah.
It's just like a million rounds all at once.
yeah,
Well,
Ah,
I wouldn't say the original design was to basically emulate that almost. Like they would have this set up on this hillside, aimed at that hillside. Soldiers come across it, fire it. Here's however many rounds coming down, like a shotgun from the clouds.
yeah.
Just
The like simulations of it that I've seen.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
researching
They're all. I
that.
don't think it ever happened, but
Yeah, the theory is to arc it. Because
mm-hmm,
bullets do have an arc to their
mm-hmm,
trajectory just because of gravity, and um, Matt can explain this a little better, but like the pressure behind the bullet when it exits the barrel and the fact that it's spinning, it actually rises a little bit. So you can actually picture it as like a football being thrown. It
oh,
goes up, 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 and then it starts coming back down. Um, just in shorter distances when you're shooting a gun, it looks straight, but it's actually, kind of an arc.
I think I don't remember if MythBusters did this one. I think they did, but yeah, I mean the minute a bullet leaves a barrel, it's immediately starting to drop. So you could hold the bullet and fire the bullet and drop it at the same time, and they're going to hit at the same time. Gravity has the same effect. The bullet doesn't have like lift like an airplane wing.
Okay.
It's just coming out. It's stabilized from the rifling, and it's flying through the air. But that up and down that people always consider, that's the actual rifle or whatever tilted up and lobbing it, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you can watch any of the slow-mos. We do it here all the time, especially you're shooting long range, and I can record it zoomed in and slow it down and watch the bullet, spinning through.
Yeah, Matt's got some pretty cool videos that he's taken of him shooting targets, and you can see the bullet flying through the air towards the target.
All this talk reminds me of there's a quote that I think is attributed to Einstein, but it's like World War III is going to be fought with cutting edge technology, and World War IV is going to be like fought with sticks and stones, or in this case, maybe harmonica guns, or harmonica pistol. Yeah,
yeah, we'll get back to
somebody
that.
Starting from scratch. Yeah, start all over.
Oh, man.
Hey, that's our calling here at Wicked Weapons, to train the survivors
of World War III.
Train the survivors. Yeah, right.
On that note, I think we can wrap it up. Do either of y'all have any closing thoughts?
It was fun, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on again. I absolutely loved talking about it, so thank you so much.
Yeah. I promise, Josiah, that next time we'll cover something with you that's not a gun.
A bat bomb or like something wacky, I don't know, laser weapons. Like give me something that's sci-fi. I'm all about it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
guns.
I got something in mind.
Guns.
I got something in mind I think you would like.
All right.
That I'll crack out. But all right, for anybody listening, thank you for listening, and check us out on Spotify if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on Spotify, check us out on YouTube. We're on both of those. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you want, comment and tell us we're wrong about something, or comment
give
and
us some ideas of some other shows for the
give us give us ideas, and thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.